organizations are swimming in data, where do things usually start to break down between having all this information and then using it effectively to make a good decision?
I think that the first thing, or we talk about kind of where things break down, particularly when it comes to like information intelligence, is that those two things are actually very different things. When we break this down to the kind of different information states, as it were, the first one we will come across is data, which is raw data in an unstructured form. It could be a single post on social media. It could be a single post or report from a guard on the front line, or it could even be a media article. It's just a single point of unstructured data. When you get to the information stage, what you're doing is taking multiple data points, multiple social media posts, multiple media articles, or what have you, and processing all these individual data points into a single structured record of information. But we're still not yet at the intelligence stage, because intelligence is analyzed information in context of an organization or a decision maker. Intelligence includes an assessment, which has things such as a so what, or what is the impact or implications of this information to us as an organization. It can have an advisory of recommended courses of action or mitigated controls to mitigate a threat, manage a risk, or realize an opportunity.
Can you share an example of what good intelligence-led decision-making looks like in practice?
So an interesting example, we were monitoring for threats towards a data center client, both the industry and indeed the organization itself and their assets. And we'd identified some indicators in some various kind of information channels that this organization was going to be specifically targeted by various kind of threat actors, typically sabotage-based threat actors, because of a geopolitical grievance and an ideological grievance. So by identifying this chatter, assessing the intent and the capability and the opportunity to act of the associated threat actors, able to communicate to the organization and decision makers that, look, these particular assets in this part of the world are likely to be targeted in the next 24, 48 hours, because there is a window of opportunity for this group to take action. The organization was best equipped then to deploy the assets that it felt fit to mitigate that threat, which it did to success. It wouldn't have been able to be successful to mitigate that threat if we weren't kind of asking the right questions and going, hey, what threats could impact this organization? What threats could impact this industry? Utilizing all the available sources, all available and appropriate sources, and indeed integrating that into decision making.
Even when systems are connected, decisions don't always improve. In fact, when you have that kind of connection and flow of information, it can mess things up in people's heads. So what's your opinion? Why is that the decisions don't always improve?
I think a big bit of it is awareness versus understanding. We crave to know more. We crave to understand more. But particularly in today's kind of information landscape, with the huge amounts of information available at all of our fingertips, it's just too much. And we almost get stuck into that kind of doom scrolling mentality of tell me more, tell me more, tell me more, without taking a step back and going, hey, what does this actually mean for me? And if we don't get into that mindset, decisions aren't going to improve because we're too busy chasing what's happening next. We almost get into a mindset of what does this mean for me, as opposed to going, what does this mean for we? What does this mean for us as an organization? And we all know that what happens on one side of the world at the minute has a butterfly impact and effect on the other side of the world. So the what's in it for we mindset, the context, what this means for the organization as a whole, is key.